Hey everyone, John Lorden here. Happy Friday, June 15th, 2018. I hope each and every one of you has had a nice week. Before we jump into today's case, I want to give you guys a little bit of an update on the schedule for next week. Next week is VidCon, so I will have videos Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, but no Itchy Mysteries and no Brainscratch for next week. And then the following week, I'm going to come back on Wednesday with another Searchlight. So almost a full week off. Basically, last video for next week will be Wednesday, and then first video for the following week will be Wednesday. I'll be soaking up as much information as I can at VidCon about all the latest tips and trends with YouTube. So appreciate your patience with all that. With all that being said, let's go ahead and talk about today's case. We are looking at what seems like 4 very senseless deaths, and they might all be connected in a bit of a bizarre way. It's a really, I don't know, this is why I made this show, to try to cover incidents like this. It is just so hard to understand what's going on in this case. So let's go ahead and get started and try to put this together, make some sense out of all this. Starting at DesMoinesRegister.com. The Iowa Department of Criminal Investigation has released the name of a mother and her young son who died after being struck by a train Friday. We can see from the date here, this is just in May 7th of 2018. Teresa Catherine Gerleman, 36, and her son Henry Fields, 8, of Belle Plaine were killed in a train versus pedestrian incident at 5 a.m. When police arrived at the scene, they found their bodies, according to the release. Investigators are determining the cause of the incident, and so are we. Are we going to find that by the end of this episode? I'm not sure. Let's take a look. Now, what case does this connect to in terms of potentially being connected to 2 other senseless deaths? It's these 2 young girls here. They are cousins. Unfortunately, this story sounds a little bit like the Delphi story. 2 young girls. In this case, they were going out for a bike ride. They would not make it home. Let's learn a little bit more about Lyric Raylan Cook. She was born on October 2nd, 2001 in Waterloo to Dan and Misty Morrissey. She attended Kingsley Elementary School and was 10 years old. Lyric passed away on Friday, July 13th, 2012. So obviously we're talking a case that is more than 5 years away from what happened on those train tracks. Lyric was an infectious joy to be around, with a smile that radiated with love. She enjoyed bowling, cheerleading, and gymnastics. She loved to be outside playing, snow, rain, or shine. And obviously that's very clear, considering she apparently loved riding her bike with her cousin, Elizabeth June Marie Collins. Elizabeth was born at Allen Memorial Hospital in Waterloo, Iowa on July 31st, 2003, the daughter of Drew and Heather Cook Collins. She was a student at Poynter Elementary and was a bubbly little person with the best smile, who loved what life had to give and all it had to offer. Elizabeth enjoyed dressing up and getting her nails and hair done. She loved singing, riding her bike, and playing softball and hockey. She had a big heart and a great love for animals. And then, as we note here, Elizabeth also passed away on Friday, July 13th, 2012. She was only 8 years old. Now, this information is coming from an article that is really well done. And you guys know I like to call out when I see people doing good work. Jody Ewing at iowacoldcases.org has done a phenomenal job of pulling together so many sources. I mean, honestly, you guys think that I have a lot of sources for my videos? Look at this section just of sources for this article that she has put together. It's really amazing. And obviously, someone like myself that likes to assimilate large amounts of information and give it back to people in a way that's a bit more concise can truly appreciate this. And I really want to thank Jody for her excellent work pulling all this together and really putting this story, all the different pieces that are laid out all over the media, into one place where we can get a good solid understanding of it. So we're going to lean on this website quite a bit because, quite honestly, she's done a fantastic job here. Lyric and her cousin Elizabeth were reported missing to the Evansdale Police Department in Evansdale, Iowa on Friday, July 13th. 2012. The girls were seen at about 12:23 p.m. July 13th on Broven Boulevard in Evansdale, and then spotted between 12:30 and 1 p.m. on Gilbert Drive, not far from Myers Lake, a popular fishing and recreation area in the northeastern Iowa city of about 4,700 residents. Their bikes and Elizabeth's purse were later found on a trail on the southeast corner of Myers Lake about 4 p.m. the same day the girls went missing, but there were no clues as to their whereabouts. The girls' grandmother, Wilma Cook, told the press she last saw the girls riding their bikes near downtown Evansdale about 12:15 July 13th. On Wednesday, December 5th, 2012, hunters came across two deceased bodies in the Seven Bridges Wildlife Park. Let me pull up a map real quick just so you guys can get a sense of the problem with that. Myers Lake, way down here. Seven Bridges County Park, way up here. We are talking approximately 24.1 driving miles taking this route. So obviously the girls' bikes were left behind at Myers Lake, as well as one of their purses. And they were taken by somebody, more than likely, I would assume, in a vehicle, and taken to Seven Bridges County Park. And this article also notes about 25 miles from where the girls were last seen. On Monday afternoon, December 10th, 2012, the Iowa State Medical Examiner's Office confirmed the bodies found on Wednesday were those of Lyric Cook and Elizabeth Collins. According to a Cedar Rapids Gazette article published July 25th, 2012, Dan Morrissey, 36, was scheduled to appear Friday in Black Hawk County Court in Waterloo for a pretrial conference covering 4 separate cases, including one where he was charged with assaulting his estranged wife, Misty Morrissey, the mother of 10-year-old Lyric Cook. So obviously when you have someone facing a charge like that and all of a sudden that a child from that situation goes missing, it certainly makes me suspicious. I totally understand why media focused on this, and investigators likely focused in this direction for a bit as well. The Gazette said that other cases against Dan Morrissey charge him with possessing, dealing, and making methamphetamine, and a range of other drug charges that could lock him up for decades if convicted. There, we also have several other risk factors we've talked about in numerous cases before. But here we've got, he's a known dealer at this point. Not only is he creating drugs, but he's actually selling them. Could he have upset someone at some point, someone that wanted to get back at him and harmed his daughter in this way? Definitely a consideration that I think investigators would have had at that time also. The Gazette also reported that investigators were closely scrutinizing Dan and Misty Morrissey and had subjected both of them to multiple polygraph tests. At the same time, investigators said Dan and Misty were not considered suspects in the girls' disappearance and were looking into their backgrounds and that of their associates only as to not discount any possible leads. We're going to get some more information there, but let me just tell you guys at this point, there's not a whole lot more to look at in that direction. After reviewing this case, I don't believe that, at least directly, that these parents are involved with what happened to Lyric and Elizabeth. Indirectly, this is an unsolved case, so I don't think that we can completely wipe that from the board. Thankfully, investigators would get some information 6 months after Lyric and Elizabeth were found. Authorities announced on Monday, June 24th, 2013, they had 3 separate witnesses who said they saw a white, older model, full-size SUV-type vehicle, similar to a Chevy Suburban or a Ford Bronco, parked on Arbutus Avenue on July 13th. The street meets up with the bike trail where the girls' bikes were found. Two witnesses said they'd seen the white SUV parked between two bike trail signs. According to KWWL Channel 7, the other witness told police they saw the vehicle parked near the woods on the east side of the lake, only a few hundred feet from where the bikes were found. All three witnesses said they had seen the SUV sometime between 11:30 a.m. and 12:30 p.m. on July 13th, 2012, the same day and approximate time period when the girls went missing. So we've got a lot of witnesses. We've got a vehicle in the area. This seems like good information. Unfortunately, I have not found any updates in terms of this vehicle ever being identified or anyone being questioned that might have a vehicle of this kind. But it seems like we've got, you know, three different witnesses all saying they saw a vehicle at that time. It's a pretty specific time range at the area, a few hundred feet away from the bikes. I don't know. It certainly seems like solid info to me. State investigators conducted a painstaking examination of potential similarities between the kidnapping and murder of a Dayton teenager, Kathleen Shepard, and the Cook and Collins slayings. Shepard, 15, and another girl were kidnapped from Dayton on May 20th while walking home after school. Authorities say Michael James Clunder, 42, took the girls. Essentially what happened here, one of the girls escaped while he was tying up and assaulting the other one. I know eventually Mr. Clunder ends his own life. But in terms of him being connected to this case, on May 14th, 2014, the Iowa Division of Criminal Investigation said that they're confident Michael Clunder is no longer a person of interest in the Cook-Collins case. So it seems like he is probably not the person that we're looking for here. On Thursday, August 21st, 2014, Evansdale police unveiled a new web page. I actually have it pulled up here. And it's a little unfortunate. It's directly linked off their main page, which I think is awesome. But the information here is really old. It would be helpful, I think, if they would just link back to this article, quite honestly, because this article seems to be being updated pretty regularly. In terms of suspect info, we're going to cover some of that. For the contact info, I'm going to have that in the description box below. So if anyone does have any information out there, please, please, please use that contact info. But in terms of the updates on this page, it looks like they started the page, they literally added one update to it, and then they just stopped. So unfortunately, this page has kind of gone static. During a press conference, the police department said they believed that the person who abducted the cousins was likely local. The FBI's Behavioral Analysis Unit has released details, basically a profile of what they think about this person as well, based on the investigation. The offender is familiar with both Myers Lake / Angels Park in Evansdale, and he's familiar with the Seven Bridges area, and they're saying he specifically chose the Seven Bridges area because he or she was familiar with that area and knew it was secluded. The offender blends in with and may be part of the Evansdale, Bremer, and surrounding communities. The suspect likely used quiet coercion to gain the girls' compliance into leaving Myers Lake using a ruse or threats of violence. I'm wondering how many people were around the lake at that time, and if that's why they know. You know, no one is saying that they heard girls screaming or crying for help. So some level of quiet coercion, you know, a threat being spoken very lowly to them or something along those lines. The suspect may have been experiencing stress related to legal troubles, spousal problems, employment difficulties, financial strain, or mental health issues in July of 2012. The suspect may avoid discussing the case or showing interest in the matter, but is likely following developments in the media. The offender may have attempted to abduct children or adults in the past. That one really strikes me and makes me wonder about the fact, has this person repeated this crime? Have other children been abducted by this same person since then? It doesn't seem to me that if you are going to try to pull off something like this and you get away with it, what is going to be stopping you at that point? I would imagine that someone in this mindset would probably feel somewhat empowered, emboldened, and maybe take that, maybe they would go to a different area to commit their next crime, but I don't feel like the crimes would necessarily stop. Following the disappearance, the suspect may have altered his or her physical appearance, such as changing hairstyle and facial hair. The offender's vehicle may also have been altered with a new paint job or reupholstery. That might explain why we've got no leads in terms of the white Suburban or Bronco. Analysts' experience with prior abduction cases pointed to one person being involved, but there are cases when more than one person was involved. So seems like their gut is telling them it's likely one person. As the 4-year anniversary approached for Lyric and Elizabeth, officials shared tips to prevent child abduction and urged parents to establish a code word with their kids. You know, one of the reasons why I like covering cases like this is so that we can learn from these instances, and that is something that really stuck out to me. Having some type of code word or code language with your children, I think, is a really good idea. You know, a made-up pet, like just a different name for a pet that they don't have, something along those lines, something so that if there's any communication that the kid can give to the parents, they can clue the parents in very quickly on the fact that something bad is happening without actually having to say that if they have the perpetrator staring at them at the face. So I think that's a really good tip, and I just wanted to pass that along to all of you as well. On July 12, 2017, KCCI.com reported that to date, authorities have interviewed more than 1,000 people and looked into more than 300 sex offenders. And that is going to lead us into the next article over at KCCI.com, more specifics about one of the sex offenders that they looked into in particular. And unfortunately, this article is written 5 years after the girls disappeared. Elizabeth Collins, 8, and Lyric Cook Morrissey, 10, went missing 5 years ago this week. Authorities say new leads still trickle in and that they are following up on every single one. Quote, "Just the thought of not having your sister here when you wake up, it's just terrifying," said Callie Collins, Elizabeth's sister. Callie was only 4 years old the day her sister Elizabeth and cousin Lyric disappeared. But she said she still remembers everything, even asking her sister to go on the fateful bike ride that led to their disappearance. I said, "But can I go?" And she said, "No, because Grandma isn't going to come with," Callie said. "I don't think there is ever going to be a day in my life that I don't think about it constantly and wonder where she'd be or what she'd be doing," said Drew Collins, Elizabeth's dad. Authorities recently investigated an Ankeny sex offender as a new lead. Jeff Altmayer, 58, is charged with trying to entice children by offering them $100 to get in his van. Court records show he was working as a traveling automobile damage field inspector. Quote, "It is very concerning to us when you have an individual like that has the access that he does through his employment at the time to basically roam the state or roam the Midwest," said Mitch Mordvet, head of field operations for the Iowa Division of Criminal Investigation. Lyric's parents, Dan and Misty Morrissey, both received prison sentences for unrelated drug charges. Misty Morrissey has since been released. From what I understand, Dan is still in jail and will likely be in jail for a while because of the charges that he wound up facing. At the time, their involvement with drugs fueled speculation. Authorities now say they do not believe Lyric's parents were involved in the incident. "I think people are confident in saying they didn't have an active role," Mordvet said. "However, that doesn't rule out anything coming in the future." 2 people have confessed to the crime, but authorities eliminated them after finding out they did not know any intimate details about the case. One thing investigators have done here is not disclosed any information about what happened to these girls. We know their bodies were found. We don't have a cause of death. We don't know what they might have been subjected to. So when it comes to confessions like this coming in, I think it's pretty easy for them to route out people that are lying. They're going to ask for details about, well, what did you do to them? Where did you do it? What did you use? And if these people aren't able to answer those questions, they know that these confessions are false. I can't believe that we've got 2 people that would confess to this. It kind of blows my mind, but that is the case. Investigators have never told anyone exactly how Elizabeth or Lyric died. Elizabeth's parents divorced because of their differences in dealing with the immense grief. Quote, "It's more than a person can deal with, Drew Collins said. Now, the Collins kids never go anywhere without an adult and wear necklaces with a picture of Elizabeth. Really tragic that it's busted up a family. On top of just the tragedy of losing a child like this, it kind of breaks my heart when things go this way. But we do see this pretty frequently. This is an intense situation. Relationships sometimes can't make it through situations like this, and it's really sad to me. Jumping back to some information at Iowa Cold Cases, I just wanted to round out kind of what happened. Funeral services for Lyric Cook were held on December 29th. Memorial services for Elizabeth Collins were held on December 13th. And then we have kind of a beautiful memorial. On February 6, 2013, officials announced that the trail and park at Myers Lake would be renamed to honor the memory of Lyric and Elizabeth. The trail that runs around the lake is now known as the Trail of Angels. The park sitting next to the lake will be known as Angels Park. The city also declared July 13th as Lyric and Elizabeth Day. Obviously, the community paying a beautiful tribute to both the girls, and I'll have an update on the park that kind of blows my mind. But before we get to that, on July 15th, 2017, the Courier posted an article that is catching up with Lyric's mother. What did she go through after jail? Where is she now? Misty Cook says the past 5 years have brought about a sort of rebirth. When her 10-year-old daughter, Lyric Cook Morrissey, was abducted and killed in Evansdale along with a cousin in 2012, Cook said she felt as though she wasn't living her own life. She was disassociated and numb, just going through the paces. She fell back into drugs and was sentenced to 10 years in prison in 2014. Quote, "After Lyric, I didn't think that I'd be willing to have any more kids, and God had other plans, and we were really, really blessed to have her in my life." Cook is overjoyed with her 5-month-old daughter, Abigail. She cares for baby chicks on a farm along with her boyfriend, Zach Frazier, but it's hard to let go of Lyric's death and the unknowns surrounding it. "I'm living again, and that's good, but it's tainted every day with a sadness and a loss, just something that's deeply missing from my life," Cook said. Cook said that she's been frustrated to not hear from law enforcement agencies about the investigation of the girls' deaths. Knowing no arrest has been made is also painful. She worries the person is out there watching her family. You might want to read the article. It also goes into the public perception of the potential that their drug use or their drug habits were somehow related to what happened to the girls. It says that she honestly couldn't even go to the market. She was just being judged left and right by everybody. It's tough because I understand why people would be looking in that direction. I would like to think that people would be decent to other people in public, and we don't have any confirmed proof that her lifestyle had anything to do with this case. But on the flip side of that, I know people are trying to understand this case. They're trying to help in this case. And one of the considerations there is, did this lifestyle invite some danger that might have affected these girls? So I see both sides of it, but it is kind of sad to me regardless. So how does this all tie to what I started this video with? Woman with reported info on kidnap murder of young Iowa girls kills herself and son. Yeah, the woman that was found on the train tracks with her son did it herself and actually pulled her son onto the tracks with her. Teresa Catherine Gerleman, 36, pulled herself and her 8-year-old son, Henry Fields, in front of a train last month, but before doing that, she claimed to have information about what happened to 2 cousins who were kidnapped and murdered in July of 2012. Now, they're talking about the fact that the girls were cousins. I don't believe Teresa has any connection to this family whatsoever. I mean, maybe she's, part of the same community, but no relation, no blood connection to this family. So what is up with this information that she supposedly had over at the Gazette? We'll get some more details on that. Acting on a tip and a search warrant, authorities scoured the Belle Plaine home of a woman who killed herself and her son earlier this month by stepping in front of a train. Public records paint a picture of a woman beset by legal and physical and mental health issues. Julie Croft, one of Gerleman's community support specialists with the Genesis Development nonprofit health rehabilitation firm, told authorities that Gerleman was in possession of a 6-page letter she was keeping in a box that was written by guys she used to hang around with that admitted to doing that, meaning the killings of the girls, according to the search warrant application. Mike Krupfil, a special agent with the Iowa Division of Criminal Investigation, said Friday investigators did find the letter Croft mentioned. Quote, "But it was information we already had," he said, noting that when taken in context with Gerleman's mental state, authorities got no new leads from the letter. It's old information is what it is. Now, what I'm wondering is, according to the details we've heard before about there being 2 confessions, and this is being pretty straightforward, that this woman that was in this community outreach program that was helping this lady heard that it was a confession, and knowing that these guys are saying this is old information, I have a feeling that the letter ties to one of those 2, maybe even both of those confessions, and that's why they know that it's not solid information for them. But is it really that confession? Is that what drove her to do this horrible thing of ending her own life and taking her child along with her? Or is there something else at play here? In their follow-up investigation to the murder-suicide, investigators talked to Croft and another woman who worked at the nonprofit organization that serves people with disabilities. Croft told authorities that Gerleman, about 3 months earlier, said her medication made her, quote, "feel like standing in front of a train," according to the search warrant application. So it seems like, I don't know, I don't think her having that letter, I mean, look, we're talking how many years after the fact? I don't think that letter was a pressure point that moved her to doing this. It seems like she was struggling mentally. She was struggling with the medication that she was on, and unfortunately decided to do something very terrible to both herself and her son. Investigators are yet to pinpoint a motive. This is over at Daily Mail. Her son Henry was a 2nd grader at Longfellow Elementary School. After their death, police went to their home and found the doors locked and the windows covered. Gerleman had few family members as her parents are dead and she has no siblings. Really just a sad story. Sounds like someone that didn't have a whole lot of support. I looked into her a little bit, and she certainly had money trouble that you could kind of trace very easily over the internet. It was fairly clear that she wasn't able to work. I don't know. It's really a sad story. And then the connectivity to this other tragedy, I don't know. It's just very, very heartbreaking. So in terms of the park, first let's go with some good news that happened around the park. August 28th of 2017, the Black Hawk County Gaming Association last week awarded a $30,000 grant to the Evansdale Park Board to help construct a new handicap-accessible bridge at Myers Lake. The 10-foot wide, 150-foot long bridge will replace the earthen causeway connecting the north shore of the lake to the island park dedicated to young murder victims, including cousins Elizabeth Collins and Lyric Cook Morrissey. And the $30,000 doesn't cover the bridge. That was just contributed. The total for this project is $190,000, and they now have the money that they need for construction on that bridge. Construction on the bridge was going on, and in a very, it just kind of blows my mind. I don't know if any of you guys believe in signs from another realm, but literally 2 days after that woman took her and her son's life on the train tracks, it seems like a lightning bolt struck the park. An Eastern Iowa community is coming together and reviewing the damage at Angels Park in Evansdale. Neighbors believe lightning damaged one of the memorial sites. Right now, pieces of cement and dirt are littered across the memorials that are dedicated to people the community lost over the years, including Elizabeth Collins and Lyric Cook. And this is Drew Collins, Elizabeth's father here, who's talking about repairing the park. And you should really watch this video. It shows you the damage. It's weird because it looks like there's several different places where there was some type of explosion. I don't know if the lightning bolts kind of hit that statue. I don't know if that statue might have metal inside of it and then somehow connected to the rebar that was placed under the concrete and then came out. It's really bizarre to me because the way the rebar is deformed and the way that the rock sprung up, I've never quite seen anything like it before. It's a really, really bizarre scene. According to people living nearby, they heard a loud bang Wednesday morning and they assume lightning caused all the damage. Quote, "It's not a real big deal. We can rebuild it. To me, it's just that stuff happens and you've got to just deal with it. So we'll figure out what needs to be replaced and we'll just fix it," Drew said. They say lightning doesn't strike twice in the same place, so we're going to fix it and keep our fingers crossed, and I think we'll be okay, he said. Right now, Drew said they're more concerned about finding Jake Wilson of LaPorte City than fixing the space at Angels Park. He's talking about a missing persons case. And that's one of the things that really amazes me about this community when you have people face tragedy like this and they want to give back to others. We've got him taking the opportunity in this article here to let the public know, hey, there's something else I care about. There is a missing man with special needs. His name is Jake Wilson. I hear you loud and clear, Drew, and I'm going to be covering Jake Wilson's case on Searchlight next Wednesday. That'll be the last episode before I take that week off. Collins believes the weather caused at least $3,000 in damage to memorial space. If you'd like to help with the cause, you can write a check to First Security Bank in Evansdale and make it out to the Angels Memorial. And thank you to my wonderful supporters, both on Patreon and PayPal. That's exactly what we're going to do. I'm going to write a check and send it to First Security Bank specifically to help them with the damage that happened to this memorial space so they can get it back to where it's supposed to be, hopefully in time for that bridge opening so they can have a nice celebration around all that as well. Wow. I don't know, guys. So we have a tragedy wrapped up in a tragedy. We have the unsolved murder of two very young girls that's still open. I've got contact information down below. If you have friends that live in this area, please share this video with them. It's really important that we keep awareness raised to this case, that we keep people talking about it, asking what happened, who's responsible for this, who is that person, where are they, and can we hold them accountable? Can we bring them to face justice in this case? I know that there are two families that are really, really looking for that, and they're all splintered into different directions now. There's a lot of people that have been touched by this case. There's a whole community that wants to see this solved. So if you might be the person that has the key that we're all looking for here, please dig down within yourself, find a way to pick up the phone, use the contact information down below, and get that information in the right hands. For the rest of you, let's talk about this in the comments. I want to hear your thoughts and theories. Is there any other information that you've heard that I didn't cover on this? Let's share that in the comments down below as well. And as always, I ask that we please stay respectful. Keep in mind there's a very good chance that the family members or community members are going to see this video. So let's try to keep those comments respectful. Nothing's off the table. We can discuss any aspect, but there's always a respectful way to do so. So that's all I ask. I also ask that you have a wonderful weekend. Thank you so much for joining me on this episode of Brainscratch. I'll see you back here on Monday on the Lord Marks channel.